And we'll hit. Hello and welcome to the Outside the Cockpit post-race show for the Spanish Grand Prix. My name is Sam Donzik. I'm joined by TJ, Ming, and Julian. How you guys doing today?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. We had a fairly exciting race on Sunday. Let's get right into it with the race results. Let me just quick pull these up here. Yeah, so as you can see here, obviously Lewis Hamilton finished first again. Verstappen came home second. Bottas third. Leclerc, Perez, Ricciardo, Sainz Jr., Norris, Ocon, Gasly, Stroll, Raikkonen, Vettel, Russell, Giovinazzi, Latifi, Alonso, Schumacher, Mazepin, and Yuki Tsunoda, who DNF'd obviously due to engine issues. And that is your super quick recap of the race results. Let's get into our first topic here, talking about the Mercedes Masterclass strategy. Let's start with Julian. What are your thoughts on that strategy?
The strategy was absolutely amazing, man. I'm going to be 100% honest with you in that sense. Mercedes was very, very, very smart to bring in Hamilton there. Now, obviously, as we know, Spain is a very, very tough track to overtake at. It's always been and has been for many, many years, especially since the specs changed into these larger cars. However, Mercedes just saw this and said, hey, if we're on the same tires as Verstappen on this track, we're not going to be able to catch him. We're going to be right behind him, but we're not be able to get to him. So they thought, hey, it's going to be way easier for us to be able to pit. And that was the way to go. That was the way to go for Mercedes. Simple as that. You could see that Verstappen was losing time hand over fist as soon as those tires went onto Hamilton's car, and he was even losing that time to Bottas, who also pit a bit earlier as well. So to be fully honest, I don't know why Red Bull didn't, try to cover that strategy. Maybe they thought, okay, since Spain's a hard track to overtake at, we'll be able to take over. But when someone's on 40-lap old tires against someone who's barely on 20-lap old tires, even if those other tires are to a certain degree worn, yours are even more worn, and it's going to be way easier to move you. You're basically a sitting duck.
Yes, definitely. What are your thoughts, TJ, on that?
Like you said, it was a masterclass, and they caught Red Bull completely unaware. They had no idea that they were going to bring him in a second time. They thought that they'd also try and commit to the one stop as well, try and eke it out. But, I mean, it was sort of a given that someone was going to come in to go for a second stop, because at the beginning they showed the AWS graphic and they said that one stop is more challenging to make it work. So, I mean, it was really the only option to make those tires last. And fair play to Verstappen. He made it last more or less until the end before he had to come in, and he got the fastest lap at the end. But it was a foregone conclusion that it was going to be that one of them was going to come in and try and pull the second stop off and make the charge up.
What do you think, man, about that strategy for Mercedes?
Yeah, that was an absolutely awesome strategy. It's kind of remind me of the avocado undercut in Bahrain, but it also, I think there's a lot of factors in that. The fact that Red Bull make a big risk in that race, and because they pit Verstappen really early on, and they try going for that, and I think that's not going to work out. And seeing that Lewis Hamilton pace after the pit going absolutely crazy. I think it's in 5 laps where we overtake Verstappen. So it's a bad risk. That's my take on it.
No, I would agree with all you guys. Yeah, it's really interesting the fact that, again, like TJ said as well, I feel like one of them was going to have to pit a second time, and it was really bold for Red Bull to go out there, pit really early and only make one pit stop. And usually, depending on who it is, if you think of look at Lewis Hamilton, he's been able to expand life out of tires, for X number of laps and still win races and still get fastest laps. But it was just a little bit different, I think, on this track where they put in obviously he came in later the first time, and then the second time again he pitted again, and that's where they caught him off guard. And Martin Brundle said as well, they totally caught them off guard. They weren't aware of that he was going to come in that second time, which really proved that Mercedes strategists, they had the upper hand against Red Bull. Again, the pace-wise, Red Bull was there. versus Mercedes. They had the pace, definitely. It was a great overtake from the race start as well. But it's just, when you look at the overall strategy, it was a great call from Mercedes. Moving on to kind of our next topic related to that. But where did Red Bull go wrong with their strategy, and why do you think they wanted to keep Verstappen out so long? And do you think they just made a wrong move with the one-stop race for Verstappen? Let's start with you, TJ.
Yeah, they did. I mean, like I said before, like we all said before, Mercedes caught Red Bull unaware, and you have to plan for every scenario, and it didn't seem like Red Bull did, because had they pitted Verstappen after Hamilton did, they would have lost track position, and it wouldn't have made much of a difference in terms of, catching up and, getting on track action. So, I mean, that's really it. I mean, you can't fault Verstappen, because he did put in a magnificent drive with those really old mediums that he held on to as long as he could before they had to bring him in. So, and it's going to be interesting how that moves on now with Monaco being the next race. Overtaking is nearly impossible there. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out with where Red Bull go, in terms of their tire strategy and their race strategy for the next race.
Definitely. What do you think, Julian?
No, you need to learn. If there's one thing that they should have learned from Hungary 2019, and one thing that they should learn, if you put Lewis Hamilton on a new set of tires, if he's still churning out fastest laps on worn sets, do you really think he's not going to catch you when you have 22 laps left and he's only 22 seconds behind you and he's on fresh rubber while you're on worn tires and losing time every lap? I thought they learned that back in Hungary. Apparently they didn't. As soon as I saw Hamilton come in, I was like, oh, Red Bull's going to cover him off here to make sure he doesn't get the undercut. They might come out in front of him by a little, or they might just simply, come out right behind him, but they'll be able to challenge him because they're both going to be on the same tires, and it's going to be a fight to the end. I was very excited for that. Instead, they kept him out. And obviously that kept the certain levels of, is he going to catch him? Isn't he going to catch him? But I watched that, and if I'm going to be 100% honest with you, I kind of fell asleep, because the fact was, I saw it and I'm like, Hamilton's going to catch him. Like Hamilton is going to catch him easily. Like there's no doubt in my mind. He's already done it at Hungary. And sure, people can say the Mercedes isn't as good this year compared to the Red Bull potentially when it comes to car. Yes, but it's still Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton, I'm pretty sure you could put him in that McLaren and he'd still be up there racing. That McLaren's a good car, but it's not better than the Red Bull. It's not better than the Mercedes. But if you put Hamilton in that McLaren, I'm almost certain that he can contest for race wins. We saw this in the earlier portion of his career. So that's why the fact that Red Bull didn't just see the fact that Hamilton boxed, they're like, oh crap, we should box as well. Like next lap, come in, get the fresh tires. That's obviously that. Another thing also with Red Bull though, and you guys know, the ones who've been on here, I love Sergio Perez. I absolutely love the guy. Great driver, very dedicated. He loves pushing into the limit. He had a very poor weekend in Spain by his standards. If he was able to qualify in the top 4 instead of Leclerc, who had an amazing qualifying, by the way, but if instead of Leclerc it was Perez, Hamilton would have never been able to pull off that strategy in the first place, because Perez would have been right there with Bottas, would have been right there with him. So, yeah, Red Bull got to look at themselves and be like, we didn't do the proper strategy. And as much as I don't like them throwing drivers under the bus, Sergio Perez, he needs to step up his game. He's had a tough season so far to start off. He had a great performance in the first week. He had obviously had some problems at Imola, and he was sick for the majority portion of this weekend, so you can't fully fault him for that. We haven't seen Red Bull come out and say anything about him just yet, like he needs to step up or anything. But if it's not happening by Monaco next week, I'd be very, very surprised. Perez needs to step up his racing, and that's just how it be for him. It's just how it is sometimes, and it's very sad to see, because we've seen how talented Sergio is, but he has to step up a bit in this Red Bull seat.
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of brought up the whole stepping up and stuff, because I was on Instagram today and I saw something from Autosport where they posted it was like, I guess, a quote from Verstappen and Christian Horner saying that if Perez was closer to Bottas and Hamilton stuff, they were able to close the gap, then Mercedes wouldn't have those strategic options, which is exactly what you said. They haven't really come out and said, but of course, Christian Horner is always very vocal about his second driver. He's really he is we've known this about when he saw with Albon and Gasly. He's very two-sided, but also very open and very vocal about it. So I just read it today. I was like, that's just actually, I somewhat agree with that, because if Perez was, did have a better weekend, he was up there challenging Bottas, then Hamilton, or let's say, for example, he had somehow got into third place past Bottas, or into second or third. Then obviously, then it makes it different for like Lewis Hamilton and stuff, because then Perez can pretty much be a roadblock for Hamilton trying to get past and catch up to Hamilton, or to catch up to Verstappen, I mean. So I think that's kind of where, and again, in terms of where Red Bull went wrong, they just kind of weren't aware. They somehow, like Julian said, I don't know how they didn't learn from their mistakes, because that's the one thing you have to do is if you make a mistake the first time, you don't learn from the next time, then it's very tough, to get better and stuff. What are your thoughts, Ming, on where they went, where Red Bull went wrong?
I mean, if you listen to Verstappen radio after the race, you kind of feel the frustration that he had as well. And the fact that I'm just kind of like that feeling of when you when he passed, Lewis Hamilton just passed and they just pitted. I'm like, well, you could have just pit earlier, like one after, and then we could have a very awesome chase, like maybe like in Bahrain as well. But yeah, it was a very underwhelming choice from Red Bull, and it's just a very risky move as well. And I'm just like, it's not a worthy risk at all. The race kind of changed its tone when the camera started focusing on Lance Stroll to get P10 after that. So it's just already like a different like, yeah. But I think that it's just like, if they just right after that they pit right after Lewis Hamilton, they can actually compete with them in as well. And I'm just like, I was just like, I don't think when I see Lewis paces going up like that, I don't think that's gonna work out. So I think that's got to step up too. And Perez is just I don't know why he is in this race. He was on a mission in Bahrain. He was spinning, he was slipping in Imola, and I hope that he would step up and really helps, because I think that would really helps a lot with Verstappen, because this is the second time I saw when he got pressured by both Bottas and Hamilton, and Perez is nowhere to be helping him at all.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on to everyone's most impressive driver. Give me your 1 to 2 drivers for the most impressive driver for the weekend. Let's start with you, Julian.
You put me right on the spot, man. But if there's one person, and I'm going to claim this first before anyone else does, but I think everyone here agrees, this was an absolutely amazing weekend for Charles Leclerc. He had an absolutely amazing qualified 4th, and he also brought the fight to Bottas. After the first set of pit stops, he did lose a bit of the pace compared to him, but that just comes down to how that Ferrari is built. Leclerc had an absolutely amazing Grand Prix, cannot take anything from him, and Ferrari needs to get their things together, man. They have an amazing driver in Leclerc, and Sainz also proved today that he's a very capable driver. You need to keep an eye on what Ferrari can do in the future. They need to take advantage of this rules package change to give Leclerc a championship-winning car and give Sainz a car to also compete, considering the fact that Carlos last season, as we saw, can compete in that McLaren. And another driver, someone that did go a bit under the radar for this Grand Prix, I would say Esteban Ocon. He had an amazing weekend with Alpine. He had a great qualifying session, and he did have a very, very solid GP. He's been outclassing Alonso all season, and it's something that most of us have not been talking about. Everyone talks about the fact that Stroll is outclassing Vettel, or the fact that Norris is outclassing Ricciardo, or everyone's focusing on the cars that are up front with the fact that Verstappen and Hamilton are running circles around their teammates. But no one's talking about the major step up that Esteban Ocon is having against returning to the grid, Fernando Alonso. He's doing an amazing job in that Alpine. He's had amazing qualifying sessions, and Alonso isn't racing poorly. He's also doing the most he can out of that Alpine. With the fact that Ocon has stepped up so much compared to last year, I think needs to be talked about just a little more.
Definitely. Who are your most impressive drivers for the weekend, TJ?
Well, like Julian, for me, it was Charles Leclerc. Obviously, if you saw him at the start, the overhead, especially him overtaking Bottas on the outside of turn 3. Clearly he saw what Fernando Alonso did in 2013 to Lewis Hamilton. So that overtake right there, that's really something you don't see very often, especially going on the outside. And then like Julian said, he had a great weekend. Ferrari have improved massively from last year. And you guys mentioned that Perez wasn't able to take the fight. I think it was, Perez was unable to take the fight to Mercedes, and that's because of Leclerc. He qualified 4th on Saturday, and then on Sunday he was just holding everybody up after he overtook Bottas off the start, and there was a huge train as Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen sped off into the distance. So, Ferrari have improved. They do need some work to do, obviously, to get some more speed, but they're back in business for the most part, and that really, really is exciting. Another driver I liked was Daniel Ricciardo. He was he hadn't been as good as everyone expected him to be in his first 3 races with McLaren, and it says a lot given how little time drivers have now spent at their new teams, given everything that's going on. But also, it says a lot about Lando Norris because he has shot up like nothing. Before this race, he had finished in the top 5 of the first 3 races, and the only 2 drivers to do that were Lewis and Max. So, I mean, he made a massive step up this weekend, and it was great to see him actually getting some good chances and good licks here and there. So I'm really excited to see how Ricciardo and Norris get on later on in the season.
Definitely. What about you, Ming? Who are your 2 most impressive drivers?
Yeah, definitely just agree with Julian on all fronts. Qualifying session Saturday was an awesome day for Esteban Ocon. That he's P5 and he's been stepping up in the last few Grand Prix as well. He was very underwhelming in 2020, as we all remember, but now he was just showing more that he's going to be the new leader of the Alpine team, Alpine and Renault team in the future, and he's stepping up to his role in the future. And then Leclerc he's just pushing every car. I've seen him pushing it since the Sauber's day. But he's been pushing that car to hell, and then that, which is awesome, keeping a way superior car of Bottas for like 30 laps in that, which is awesome. That P3, he really deserved that P3 for me, and yeah, I did vote for him for the driver of the day as well. So I hope to see him like really be more competitive in the next race, and maybe we can see some Monza magic or something like that.
Yeah, yes, indeed. I'd have to agree with all of you. I think my 2 most impressive drivers is number 1, obviously, Charles Leclerc. He's done a great job this season and even last season as well, despite having a crappy car or a less than perfect car in the Ferrari, be able to push it to the absolute limit, have top 5 finishes, get close to the podium. He challenged Bottas for a while. He held him up, which was good because really that also more helped, I think, for Verstappen really just kind of go chase Hamilton without having a second Mercedes kind of by him because it kind of just held everything back, which was good to see. And as well, Daniel Ricciardo seems to be getting more and more comfortable at his team race after race. He had a really good weekend. He outqualified his teammate, which I think was one of the first times that he did that this season. He outqualified Orlando Norris. Sorry, this is the first time this season, which was good to see. I always like drivers doing well, and Daniel Ricciardo, obviously, he's got a great personality, but he's also got a really good killer instinct in Formula One where he's able to flip a switch on and just kind of go into a different direction, to a different gear, where he's able to go start moving up positions and having high quality finishes. So it's definitely exciting to see. Alrighty. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out theintermissionsports.com for more content. We'll catch you guys in a few weeks after probably a week from now when we do our pre-race show for the Monaco Grand Prix and the post-race show for the Monaco Grand Prix. So stay tuned.